Unfinished Business television fans. Show your love for all things retro and movie magic by grabbing some awesome gear from 80sts.com. Your go-to spot for the best nostalgic t-shirts from your favorite movies, TV shows, and pop culture classics. Use promo code UBTV at checkout to save on your order and support Unfinished Business television. While you're at it, relive the classics or the memories. Shop now at 80sts.com with code UBTV.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the latest episode of Unfinished Business Television, the movie reviews, I guess, edition. I am your host, Jeff Galashaw, at Unfinished B2 on most social media. And with me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. Andre Joseph.
No kings for America.
Yes, political refrain. And we are here to bring you 6 fairly up-to-date movies that we took a look at. One, at least, I think we saw in theaters. The rest, unfortunately, did not see it on its first run. But since, unfortunately, first runs are only 90 days, no, they're not even 90 days. They're like, what, 45 now?
It's like 45, sometimes even 20 days the way it's going now.
Yeah, it's almost, and some are just like same day and premiere on, online. So I guess this week we have some big titles, but we have a lot of what I will say should have been on streaming.
Yes.
So let's start off with a movie that was supposed to be the big thing and the start of a franchise, but kind of killed itself halfway through. We're going to talk about Megan 2.0, which was supposed to take over the summer. Now, I will admit, Megan, the first one, was a guilty pleasure. It wasn't actually really good, but it had that campiness factor and kind of an innocent. It's like one of those starter horror films that, like, okay, I've got a teenager. They say they like horror, but never really watched a real one. So let me take them to this because I think there's only like 3-4 people killed in the film. And since it was released as PG-13, it's not as graphic as, you thought it was going to be by looking at the preview, unless you see the unrated edition. But then even when they show the full killings in that one, it seemed like, I don't know, AI, like they just added AI blood and gore. Like, okay, that wasn't really needed. You were actually correct with the PG-13 keeping it subtle. But that is not what Megan 2.0 is about, because Megan, which was a horror thriller, this movie becomes Terminator 2 into a sci-fi action film that just happens to have some violent deaths in it. Everybody returns who survived the first film, and now we have Megan battling an Uber, or Megan 2.0, which was set up by the government to be this big, I guess, like war machine. And of course, it goes rogue because they stole the main character of the first film's hardware and design. So now we have this. Now, here's my problem with this film. I know people want to like Megan, but they kind of make her the hero here. And I guess, again, like Terminator 2, Arnold was the dangerous killer villain in the first film. Now they're supposed to be this likable, smarter than everybody else in the room hero that is indestructible. Now, partly one of my problems with this film is that everybody has more to do, especially, I guess, the guy the assistant to the main scientist character, who I barely remembered from part 1. He has like this big supporting role, whereas the black female, who's supposed to be her best friend, who had more of a supporting role, kind of gets forgotten in this film. She gets attacked and then quickly forgotten and never mentioned of again. You can see the twists and turns. The FBI agent who's after the main character. I don't know why he must have the same look throughout, where he just looks like a crumpled detective from a 1970s, detective show, because he proves only to be useful in one scene other than be the antagonist. And I'm just like, this film, I agree. Jason Blum thought he had lightning in a bottle and thought audiences would follow this film wherever it goes. And it tries to have its campiness factor, but even watching it, the film feels way too long. Like there's too much information. It's going way too long for something that started off as a simple thriller. I mean, this should have gone the Orphan 2 route and just let's keep up with what we have and just make something that's even more sinister and evil than Megan. That's all we need to do. We don't need to make synergy. So I wanted to like this film. It's competently made, but I think part of the reason is the screenwriter of the first film only gets a story by credit, and the director of the first film gets a full writing credit, and it shows where his talents more lie in the directing, not necessarily the writing, even though he did help co-write the first film. And yes, I will admit, I know it's getting all racial up in here, but the writer of the first film was African American and noticeably is absent here. And I think maybe that's where the talent more lied when it came into this film, because she knew how to competently tell a story. But that's what I have to say. I am not going to recommend this movie. Andre, what did you think of Megan 2.0?
Well, just like you, I liked the first Megan movie because it was subversive, it was hilarious, and it's a parody. It's not supposed to be taken all that seriously as a horror movie. It's got its tropes, but it's still got its very tongue in cheek nature that I know when we saw it, we were laughing our asses off. I think what happened here with Jason Blum and Blumhouse, they got caught up in their own hype. And so you have a situation where they started putting out dolls. They started to decide, let's make Megan into the Terminator. Let's make her the hero of this movie. And I knew something was going to be off when I saw that trailer, but I still thought maybe there's something here. Let's still give it a chance. The first one was really good. And yeah, this movie really got boring for me after the first hour. There's some things that I like about it, such as Jermaine Clement's death scene, being like the sleazy tech owner that's supposed to be like very Elon Musk like. And of course, you have some of the reprisal of some of the jokes, such as when Allison Williams has to sit through Megan's speech and then she starts singing A Woman's Worth by Kate Bush and is like trying to sing as she's trying to get her attention. I thought that was pretty hilarious. But otherwise, this movie reminded me of Battle Angel Alita, that same type of like, we're going to make this into a superhero movie rather than, a sci fi horror picture. And I give kudos to the fact that, yes, they wanted to do something different because one problem with certain horror franchises is it's just, let's do the same movie, but let's up the gore. And so they don't do that here, but it was still the wrong direction to take that character and to make her into the protagonist and have them make the little girl that's Alice Williams' daughter have to be even more sympathetic to her, especially when they destroy Megan's body. And just like in T2, she gets reactivated. And I'm sorry, I also did not like when what is it? They put a chip into Allison Williams so she could start fighting and doing martial arts like it's the
Yeah,
Matrix.
yes.
That completely took me out of the film. That to me felt like the director was auditioning for a Marvel movie as opposed to just concentrating on the film he was trying to do. So just like you, I can't recommend this. And it's sad that this has to put the nail in the coffin for a potential franchise.
Yeah, because weren't they also supposed to be kind of making a love doll movie that was supposed to be a spinoff of this franchise?
Yes, they
And
had a spinoff planned, and now I think that's been deep six because of the box office.
see, and also she doesn't do the dance,
No,
from the first film, unless except for the credits where you see it in silhouette. So I'm like, you're gonna take one of the most memed and unforgettable moments and then just shelve it? That just to me showed you don't understand your own product or what people saw in this film. So unfortunately, Megan 2.0, we liked it when it was 1.0. So next film, it's not really a film. This we're going to talk about AKA Charlie Sheen, which calls itself a documentary, but is kind of like the audiobook version of his autobiography that just came out. And my problem with Netflix is I'm tired of them labeling something which clearly could have been a limited series of hour-long episodes and then instead make two 90-minute uh I guess, episodes or parts and then call it a full documentary. Like at least the Robert Downey Jr., the one about his father, senior, at least that was a real documentary. 2 hours, done. This, it's like all of like Netflix's documentaries that have like 5 parts that could have probably been made to maybe a little 2.5 hour documentary. But of course, you get more clicks if you cut it up and then, you call it a documentary, but it's not really documentary. It's a limited series or even a series. So that's my little grief with this documentary. But love him or hate him, and there's a lot to hate by his behavior. But damn it, Charlie Sheen always comes off as charming, or like his character on 2.5 Men. You shouldn't like him. He's a scum. He seemed like a scumbucket, but he's just got that quality where you're like, okay, I can kind of forgive him, or I still want to hang out with that guy, or at least have a conversation with him. And if he is by some miracle watching, would love to talk to you and interview you because it feels more like gossip watching this documentary it's sort of like that where Charlie Murphy would tell his stories on the Chappelle show. That's what it felt like watching it. Cause you're like, you can't believe half of this stuff that went down. Beating Michael Jordan at basketball,
Mhm.
even if there were a lot of rules in place, but still, um, going back with his family, discussing his relationships. I mean, come on. You have Denise Richards married to him at the time, making sandwiches for his escorts. Come on. You couldn't make this stuff up. I mean, I it's one of those things we shouldn't like. But damn it if it's not entertaining. And I mean, and he's a good storyteller. Why in a diner? I have no idea. The dude does all his interviews take place in. And it's interesting that we get all these interviews with friends, family, co-stars, except for the two people you would expect, Emilio Estevez and Martin Sheen. But they are represented in the film because, there's plenty of interviews, footage of them, and he credits them. But how come they never credit Renee Estevez? She's not in this or really mentioned at all, nor his mother, nor Joe Estevez. I don't know if they're like written out of the family or what, but it does answer a lot of questions you might have about Charlie Sheen's life and career. Like, is finding out he almost was the Karate Kid, instead of Ralph Macchio, which I think would have greatly affected his life and career. And if he couldn't get out of being in Grizzly 2, he would have actually had to be the Karate Kid with very little training. I give it a recommendation, but I hate to say it, it does kind of glamorize that lifestyle a little. That because I think you have to be taken down to the depths to I guess even appreciate how did he survive or how did he make it this far. And even he obviously points out that he's no saint. He should be dead by now, but I guess he's trying to do better, even though it doesn't seem like he's doing that much. I know he just started a production company. And unfortunately, he still has HIV. But, at least he's looking healthy and he seems to be doing, health wise very well. And I mean, they even interview his drug dealer, his favorite drug dealer, who weaned him off of drugs or crack by making it less and less potent. So that was a revealing moment. Though, for all of you people who think, they appreciate the People's Choice Award, he gave his drug dealer his People's Choice Award. That shows you how much he didn't care. So, Andre, what did you think of AKA Charlie Sheen?
One thing that really stood out to me was, man, Martin Sheen was the man between as you mentioned, like beating Michael Jordan in basketball, that half court shot that he did was like mind blowing to see, as well as unfortunately the stories of Charlie walking in on his parents having sex. But yeah, Martin Sheen, he was quite the rebel in his heyday. That really surprised the hell out of me. Honestly, I would say there wasn't anything like a massive revelation that came out of it. The couple things that stood out to me were obviously there were movies that they didn't get into that I wish they could have talked about. I mean, they obviously talked about like Platoon, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and Wall Street, like all the Oliver Stone stuff that made him a star. They kind of touched on Major League just a bit and Hot Shots, but I know there's like other movies I wish they could have gotten into. Definitely not Navy SEALs. And if Charlie Sheen's watching this, don't watch our Navy SEALs deep dive. It might offend you. Um, Other things like getting obviously the interviews, they didn't get Emilio, they didn't get Martin, they didn't get some of his other family members. I was surprised with the people that they did get, like Heidi Fleiss talking about her escapades and doing business with Charlie, and Brooke Mueller, who I had never seen in an interview. I'm like, yeah, I could see the toxic attraction right there, the way she comes across. That to me was kind of a opening revelation in my view. Denise Richards having her emotional breakdown, talking about Charlie, and even that story about how her dad took her to see Platoon years ago, and then like, oh yeah, I married the guy I saw in that movie that you took me to when I was 12. That was kind of funny. And then also the ending where he gets into all the questions that had to be answered about what did he really do with Corey Haim on the set of Lucas, which I'm shocked they didn't even talk about that movie, and also the fact that he's had some menage a trois with guys as well as women. That probably shouldn't be all that surprising, but I would say he kind of bared his soul to some degree in telling his story. All the headlines, going beyond the headlines, the stuff that happened with Two and a Half Men, and when he was doing that Sheen's Corner shit, which I remember watching, and I was like everybody else that was reacting to it, like, what the hell is it? What did I pay to see here? Thankfully, I didn't pay to see that. But yeah, overall, I think I give it a recommendation just like you because he's open and honest about all of his demons and the fact that he really is trying to do this to mend whatever burn bridges there are with his family. And it was cool seeing some of the co-stars and friends like Sean Penn, Chris Tucker, all speaking graciously about him. Because even for all the bad things, even like the story about Chris Tucker saying how Charlie Sheen pushed for him to get top billing on Money Talks. To me, says there's generosity, and thankfully, it's not like Bill Cosby level shit. Like the guy, he cares, but he is still messed up, and he's trying to get his life in order. Hopefully,
Yeah, I was shocked they got like John Cryer. At least both of them admit they've had their problems, but I guess they're cordial to each other.
like I'm
I
glad it wasn't sugar coated. Let's put it
Yeah,
that way.
I'm not shocked they didn't really get too much out of Chuck Lorre. But I was shocked how much he told about Nicolas Cage. Like kind of threw him under the bus. Like, oh yeah, Nick, here we be up doing coke, and then he'd invite me to Australia. you
You know,
know,
out of anybody that they didn't get, I wish they had gotten him just for that story.
Nick Cage is pretty quiet about his personal life. They weren't. I mean, it was a coup getting Sean Penn, who they must have paid in cigarettes, because in all his interviews, he's just chain smoking away.
And that part where he takes out the knife, I thought he was going to cut himself to make a point. Like, what the fuck you doing, Sean?
He's not Nick Nolte in Tropic Thunder, man. Like, let me tell you something.
I feel like he was in character for the other movie we're going to talk about today.
I agree. Yeah, they must have filmed this around the same time he was in that one.
He
'Cause
has the
same
hairstyle.
exactly, and I just don't think he wears that all year round.
No.
But I was just like, and I just love how Sean Penn always tries to get philosophical, and it's like, aren't you the same guy who punched out a bunch of photographers? And always seems angry when interviewed, or is usually complaining. And here he is talking about, well, you got to understand the metaphysical, and I'm like, Sean Penn, you know.
I've read his book. I've read his interviews. That's the way he speaks. He's very much in the vein of Charles Bukowski and Hunter S. Thompson.
Even though I love Barfly, it is interesting what he could have done with the material if he had played.
Yeah, he
Uh,
wanted, Dennis Hopper, he wanted to direct it, but Barbara Schroeder basically screwed him over.
well, I mean, I like Barfly the movie. I just don't know Dennis Hopper, the director of Barfly. It's just, but that's a subject for another day, another deep dive, maybe. So we both obviously recommend AKA Charlie Sheen, both parts, even though it should be one. But it did make me want to read his autobiography because I've heard there's stories in the book that he didn't tell, obviously, in the doc. Uh, it's obviously a promotional thing. But our next movie we're going to talk about is this one's a little strange because I know it got theatrical release some places, but as far as I know in America, it seemed like it went straight to streaming or video on demand. We're going to talk about Fight or Flight with starring Josh Hartnett, who's really the biggest name in this film. It's more of an international cast. And basically, he's a mercenary who's kind of called in to find this Uber hacker who's on a plane. And pretty much all these different hitmen mercenaries from all around the world are trying to find this hacker that they know is on the flight and kill her. Oh, oops. Well, this show's full of spoilers.
It's
Yeah,
obvious what happens.
yeah. So this is basically the lower budgeted Bullet Train, but on a plane and with not so many celebrity cameos. Um, I'll let you start this one off. Andre, what did you think of Fight or Flight?
So this movie was actually recommended to me a couple of months ago by my friend Bill Doherty, who's a screenwriter, and I give a shout out to him. And I didn't get to see it until a couple of weeks ago before we came on after you said you saw it. And going in with kind of like the most moderate of expectations, because I feel like Josh Hartnett could be hit or miss. This is one I actually surprisingly enjoyed. This I think improved on where Bullet Train failed. Because as you mentioned, this is not littered with a bunch of cameos that are winking and nodding and trying to play up some sort of absurdity. It's still silly. I mean, there are those points of like the martial arts females that look like they're from a Troy Hark movie that help him out in the third act. You have the bit where he gets stoned on what was this like the snake venom and starts like hallucinating, like he's seeing almost anime type of things going on the plane, even as it's getting more chaotic and violent with the killers. But those are the things that I think also make it feel they're throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, and it's fun and it's brutal. And you do kind of care for not only his character, but the actress who plays the flight attendant, who you then, spoiler alert, find out there's a reason she's on the plane and she's harboring something that his government agency needs for him to complete his mission. So there's things in there that kind of, you know, it tries to do like the raid, it tries to do John Wick, but it's very much tongue in cheek fun. And at the same time, I think that he tries to do like what Bruce Willis did in The Last Boy Scout, sort of like that burned out agent who's kind of on the end of his rope, doesn't give a shit. But then, given the situation, this guy takes a lot of beatings and, really gets his ass kicked, but you do care. Like you believe this guy could get killed at any time. Not like Brad Pitt, looking like he's just sleepwalking through Bullet Train and just being lackadaisical. And yeah, he's supposed to be anxiety ridden. So I think he improves on where Brad Pitt failed. And yeah, I love the sequence during that whole near end fight with the killers. He takes a chainsaw, he's using everything around the plane, even the tray tops behind the seats as weapons. So it is just chaotic. It is fun. And I definitely give it a high recommendation because I think just on a low level compared to that other movie, this is everything that I think Bullet Train should have been. And you're not slowing it down too much to, give sympathy to different killers and all this other stuff that they tried to waste time with. This is pretty much straight to the point, very simple. And even Katie Sackhoff was very good in this too, being like the ex-girlfriend on the ground and seeing like her ties being sort of up and down. But she was kind of fascinating to watch in there too.
I surprisingly like this because I like you. I didn't expect much going in. I just figured, oh, it's gonna be a typical straight to streaming movie, and I mean it pretty much is. But this film, I think, is what a lot of films lack that make it to theaters. It has its own kind of sense. I'm not gonna deny it's absurd. But it's fun. So and you're so entertained. You don't really care of how stupid or how weird the film is. It reminds me of a recent film Match that's on Tubi, which I think is a good thriller, but there's one plot element that I think is silly, but I like the film so much you can kind of see past that. And that's what I feel like this film. It's the obviously lower budgeted, more to the point version of Bullet Train. Now, I like the Bullet Train, but also keep in mind I didn't pay to see Bullet Train. I saw it at home. So it was almost like a colorful streaming movie. It felt like one of those Knives Out movies, like here are all these all stars, and ooh, watch them get knocked off, and this isn't that deep. And Brad Pitt seems to forget, like his character's motivations. Like he does not give a Sean Penn performance. Let me put it to you that way. It's not like, oh, but what about my emotional territory here? Brad Pitt's just happy to be smiling and wearing stylish clothes, and let everybody else do the heavy work. And so I I don't like it as much as you did. I give it a recommendation. I wouldn't give it a high recommendation, but it's nice to see Josh Hartnett actually care, in a performance. And I like the fact that even though he wins most of his battles, he's not invincible. Like he could
Right.
actually die in this film. It's not Denzel Washington in The Equalizer. In
He
other
breaks a
words,
sweat.
yes, many times, and all in a strawberry a t-shirt, a strawberry milk t-shirt, throughout. I mean, you can basically tell who were supposed to be the killers, though. Like even the guy who claimed he was a dance instructor. I'm like, come
Mhm.
on, man. And I even liked the other flight attendant who doesn't know what's going on and is still trying to be hospitable despite it all. So I think this is a fun movie to watch. I think it's a movie you go into don't go in thinking. Just enjoy what it is and where it takes you. And I for that I give it a recommendation. And this is another film where I think Josh Hartnett's having a great year. With this. And Trap not the greatest, but at least it gave him room to flow and try and I guess come up with a different screen image than that of the dangerous anti-hero hottie. It required him to actually act, sort of like James McAvoy in the other M. Night Shyamalan films where he's playing multiple characters. Spoiler, if you haven't seen it, it's been years, guys. If you haven't
Mhm.
seen that, come on. So I give it a recommendation. You give it a slight recommendation. And next, we are going to talk about a very polarizing film. I mean, most of you will probably be on Andre's side, but I will say my side after. Uh, we're going to talk about the reboot, sequel, remake, whatever you want to call it, of I Know What You Did Last Summer, with which is directed and co-written by Jennifer Caton Robinson, and she directed it was a Netflix movie with Camila Mendez and Maya Hawke, because Camila Mendez would have starred in this film if not for being busy making Masters of the Universe. Yes, it's being made, guys. So this basically is kind of works. Think of it like a Halloween sequel. It's like, okay, we bring back the original characters from the first two film, but they're more supporting to this new generation that's going through something similar of the first film. And I'm going to let Andre talk about it, but I have to take back something I said in previous episodes where it's like, oh, it's all white cast. No, two of the cast members are multiracial in this film. Tyreek Winters, who is also in the recent release Him, and Chase Sui Wonder, who is half Asian, half white, or Eurasian, but both can pass. So I just want to point that out before we get into the nitty gritty of this film. So, Andre, I have a feeling you did not like this movie. Am I correct in my assumption? And
Not only did I not like this movie, this was the worst movie of the year for me in all of everything that I've seen this year.
Wait, but before you start, there will be spoilers, guys. So if
Yeah,
you
we're gonna
don't
get
want
into
to know,
fucking spoilers here.
yes, because you have to in discussing this movie. So go ahead.
So this is another movie where you look at the trailer and you know this is going to go totally wrong because it's the same beats as the original, and then Freddie Prinze Jr. comes in. Oh, I've been through this shit before, and tries to warn everybody in the town. And you still have the fisherman hook guy going around killing people, and they kind of want you to think it's Muse Watson, but it isn't. So they're still once again having to play up that it's a mystery character. But at a certain point, it becomes pretty obvious who the killer is, even when they try to throw it off with one of the other young cast members as the potential killer. And even when that gets revealed, it is so lame. It made zero sense. And I just didn't even understand the relationship that happens there to lead to that point. And then the fact that, yeah, I mean, listen, Jennifer Love Hewitt, I'm not even going to body shame her. She still looks amazing. And yet she just is there for what reason? Because, oh, we have a problem. I got to call her. She's got to come back to town and stop this guy. And yeah, so apparently her and Freddie Prinze had some sort of fallout. So they divorced since the second movie, which they do reference twice in the film. And at one point, he's like, don't even talk to me about that ever again. So I thought that was a little bit hilarious. But the whole deal of the film, and this is what is so mind boggling about it. So this is where we get into spoiler territory now. That the reason that these killings are happening, and it's pretty much hinted all throughout, the was it Seaport or whatever the town is called that's in the Carolinas, that apparently it's been gentrified since the previous two films. So now it's become a place where all the rich people can move in, and they've taken over the town and they've changed it to like the hot spots. So it's basically their version of Bushwick, but with not as much diversity, other than the two characters you mentioned. And so the killer turns out to be somebody that doesn't like that it's gentrified. And then when we do find out that that killer is the guy with the fucking toothbrush at the end of the second movie, who, for whatever reason, went psycho in the last 20 some odd years, I'm like, what the fuck? This is making zero sense to me that you would even go that route with this guy who survived the last two movies. I guess what? He went psycho when he was trying to go and save Jennifer Love Hewitt in the island, and just went so dark he started thinking about being Muse Watson. Like, no, this is lazy writing 101. And then the cameo at the end, zero sense to try to set that up for, I guess, another sequel. What was the point of having her come back? So I know I'm just like hinting and stuff because I know you probably get more into it, but this was just flat out pointless of a reboot that wasn't smart, wasn't clever, and it was just a freaking disaster and a waste of time for these actors. I don't even know why they greenlit this, why they couldn't just say, okay, we watched Scream. Let's try to do something a little bit different in the reboot front. Or maybe they didn't want it to be anything like that TV show where they did go overly diverse. But this was a piece of crap. And the director is a smart director, from what I understand, but just completely missed the mark here.
Okay. So you would not recommend?
No, and I did not like the throw off of a certain character they make you think is not dead, but it was a hallucination.
Okay. Yeah, like you said, I'm going to get into maybe a little more in-depth spoiler here. I'm not saying this is a good film. This is like, let me just start off by saying it. But I found it to be a guilty pleasure. I think the problem is this film is streamlined. It's not like the first film is coming from, young adult novel, for teens. So that's where it's getting its main storyline. And here, look, the writing is very lazy, but I found the concept interesting. And I like the little throwbacks to the first two films. I like the interesting characters, but like I said, you don't care about these characters because they're all so disposable. That was the problem I found watching this. Like, if this had been straight to streaming, I could see like this, why the film was made the way it was. Because for something that was going on that's supposed to premiere on the big screen, even though it looks like, it has good visuals and it has good locations, but it seems kind of cheap, And I guess watching it, well, it's filmed in Australia, first of all, you know, but it just felt like it was trying too hard. I think it was doing more of a fan service than anything else, but it was also trying to be too much of this generation's version of the first film. That was the problem. And it didn't it could have continued its story and threw some kind of wrenches in there, but okay, Sarah Michelle Gellar has a cameo in this. And I can understand. You want to because again, it's going the screen route where it's like, let's bring up everybody, even the dead people. If that was going to be the case, bring back Muse Watson in a dream then. Yeah, and like you said, I guess only because of the franchise, that's why we have this hook killer still wearing the same costume. Because I'm like, why can't the killer just wear something different or like a more modern outfit? I knew it was two killers at a certain point because thinking back, but after the film was one character was one place in time, and the other character, while the other who is the killer was supposed to be killing somebody. Um, this film sticks since I have this theory that black characters, if they die in a film, have the most violent and overly gory death. This film sticks to that because Tyreek Winters, Jesus, he's the new Mason Gooding. It was like, not only do we have to stab him, he's crawling around, spitting up blood, all this, and then once it looks like he's gonna live, then it's like, no, he dies in his dad's arm, and then we have to kill the dad. So even though maybe because we keep thinking the blonde girl is going to be the Sarah Michelle Gellar of the series, and since spoiler alert, she survives, they had to make somebody. So they were like, Tyreek Winters, you win, and we're going to kill a family member at that. Now, at first, I was ready to complain about, why is the killer killing people around them rather than them? But then I remember kind of the first film kind of did that, killing all these innocents. But also, I realized in her last speech, she says, I want to take away everything that you love. So that was why it made more sense of these random killings. I like it. Same reason I kind of like Megan. It's just so silly after a while. It's just like, this is so stupid that it becomes entertaining. Like I was ready to go into this like Wicked, like, oh my God, this is so bad. Here's what's wrong. Here's what's wrong. Here's what's wrong. But I would say by the second half, I just got into it. It was like, you know what? It's not good, but at least I'm entertained. And that big shock at the end, basically Freddie Prinze Jr. turning into one of the big bads. Um, I can see why it might upset some people, but again, it goes back to that Scream, reboot thing of like, oh, people you expect to always stay good have turned. And I would have liked to have known the reason for her and him and Julie's divorce because the film seems to hint like, oh, maybe they'll get back together. But by the end, you realize, oh, that's why we're not going in that direction.
He
And
wouldn't
then
share his fucking toothbrush.
yes, the electronic toothbrush that he's fascinated by. I even like they had Billy Blue over the sign as his alias in the first film as he's trying to kill the current thing. And like you said, this is where the problem starts. The film then becomes a Steven Spielberg movie because we get all these multiple endings with, like you said, the survival of a character that should not have been able to survive because they were hooked and the hook went up. And they even admitted, oh, I think some of my digestive system is in the ocean. But it's like, it seems like she got an overnight stay and they know nobody who could come pick them up. They don't have families now, apparently. And then they're like,
cyborg?
yeah, exactly. And then they're like, oh, yeah, Susie's still alive. We should go fuck her up. And it's just like,
what the fuck?
it's like, Manchi, aren't you supposed to be the most spiritual person in this movie that you're having dreams of Sarah Michelle Gellar? And then, like you said, then we get this other ending that intends a sequel. I want to see that sequel more than I want to see this film. I'm like, you know what? I accept Brandy as a survivor. I want to see that sequel. With her and Jennifer Love Hewitt in the main roles. Like I wanted to see that film. But like I said, I can't help it. This film is stupid. This film, but like the director does have talent, which is what is so frustrating. I'm not gonna recommend it, but I will give this more of a if you need something to watch and you don't mind that it's not smart, it's kind of silly and stupid. I mean, watching it, I can see why this film bombed. I don't think this generation was that clued in with the I Know What You Did Last Summer, franchise. Because again, the only good one was the first one and the series. Less said, the better, But I'll give this one.
Thankfully, Freddie Prinze doesn't kill a lot of black people in this movie.
Well, there's only one half black character in the film. Like I said, they treat him like he's a porcupine. Like yeah, and let's hang him too. Racist, you know. Like, and I also like that this film wants to be queer, but it makes you wonder. So, did this girl hook up with that other girl randomly out of depression? you know, or has she always been sexually fluid? So it's like I don't know. I know what the filmmakers were trying to do, make this modern, but I'm like, I don't know if that helped or hurt. But I give it. I don't say I'm not gonna say don't see it, but I can't in my heart of hearts recommend it. It's a guilty pleasure. This is something to drink during or watch with a group and comment on the ridiculous nature of it. But I was entertained at least. That's what I can say. But would I recommend it to anyone? No. But I don't care what anybody says. Jennifer Love Hewitt's still fine. I was hoping for more swimsuit shots in this film. Or
I think we're past that point now.
I know, but hey, this is more to me. It's supposed to be aimed at a younger audience, but I think only older fans will appreciate this film. Some will find it sacrilegious because of what happens with Ray. But for me, Jennifer Love Hewitt needs to go back to being a scream queen. I want to see her in all her goodness. And she said she didn't want the only way she'd sign up for a sequel was that, they'd have to give her more than just a 30-second cameo. And they try to interweave her into the storyline, but that's the problem. It feels like she's being sewn in there instead of it happening naturally. And that was my only problem. But Jennifer Love Hewitt aces throughout. Loved her in the film. Brandy, we could have spent a little money on that wig.
You're gonna fuck some shit up.
Yeah. Hey, that's how she's always acting. So okay. Say anything. Like I said, I just wish they would have flattered her with a better wig. I know she's supposed to be lounging at home, but I'm like, hey, you can make everybody else look pretty in this film, including the red herring preacher. And you're telling me that the preacher's assistant had nothing to do with all of this, even though we saw her at the beginning of the film. I'm just like, she would have definitely been brung back if there was a sequel. And I'm like, why did we have to kill this horror podcaster who barely has eyebrows? I was like, I hear she's very popular online though. But that is, I Know What You Did Last Summer. That's 60% against, 40% for it. But next, we go to a film that I don't think we're gonna disagree on. We're gonna check out Shane Black's new film, and it's kind of a homage to the Parker films with Play Dirty that has Marky Mark. Yes, I know Mark Wahlberg, but he'll always be Marky Mark. And Lakeith Stansfield, I think it's Rosa Acosta is the actress. Rosa or it's Rosa Salazar. One of those. Okay. Rosa Salazar. Thomas Jane for 5 minutes. Samantha Mathis. I was just like, it wasn't Samantha Mathis. God, I'm getting everybody's name wrong. Gretchen Mol is and Tony Shalhoub, taking a paycheck as one of the villains of the film. It's basically a Parker adventure when a basic robbery goes wrong and one of their partners kills the rest. Marky Mark's character as Parker kind of finds her and she puts him on to an even bigger score that he decides to join in on rather unluckily, and it puts him back in a place he's not supposed to. Um, Andre, I'll let you give your opinion on this first, and then I will give mine.
Well, it's my understanding when they were putting this project together, it was supposed to be a vehicle for Robert Downey Jr., who ended up producing it. So it would have reunited him with Shane Black, having done Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And I guess for whatever reason, maybe scheduling, maybe money, he didn't do it. You end up with Marky Mark. And I'm sorry, he is basically doing the Italian job all over again. The whole dynamics of him, Lakeith Stansfield, Keegan, I ever say his last
Michael
name,
Keane.
Michael Keegan Bay, and all the other actors that are part of his crew. It's the same type of thing of trying to plot things out. Then the plot doesn't really go exactly as planned, and of course Tony Shalhoub having to be always one step ahead of them. Um, the special effects were horrible, especially that whole sequence with the derailing of the train. It really felt to me as if Netflix, or not Netflix, Amazon didn't have the budget to do it right, so it just looks like complete crap. And Stansfield was good, he was good. Um, Rosa Salazar. Now, here's the problem that I think I realize people are going to have issue with, and that's the fact that might as well get into spoilers. She's part of his initial crew, and then turns on the crew, tries to kill him, kills Thomas Jane, and he makes a vow to Thomas Jane's wife that he's going to make sure he gets back at her. Yet the entire movie, where he's reluctantly having to be partner with her, they make her too sympathetic with the reasons for this heist and how it's supposed to benefit her country if she gets these pieces of this boat. And then it's like, okay, we're sympathizing with her. They're trying to tease a romance. And then after all is said and done, he still has to kill her at the end. So it makes, and I understand that's what Shane Black wanted to do. It's very much in the vein of what these Parker movies tend to be, or the novels that Donald Westlake wrote. But I think for this particular modern audience, it's a killer, and it doesn't really play well. Doesn't help that Mark Wahlberg's doing Mark Wahlberg and nothing anything different or original. He's in great shape. He looks good in the suit. I'll admit that, but just why? Um, and Shane Black, I've always enjoyed his work, but this is such a huge step down. It's like there was Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which was genius. Iron Man 3, which was just a paycheck gig. And then there's everything else with the Predator and this and the Nice Guys, which I really liked. And this is sort of close to that, but very inferior compared to the Nice Guys. So I cannot recommend this movie. It really was not Shane Black's strongest film. I think it was miscast. And I think the overall direction of the story is a major turnoff where it really doesn't know what it wants to do or what it wants to be.
I pretty much agree with most of what you said. I agree. I think it's misdirected. I think this is the type of film that, like The Nice Guys, needs to have more depth in its own, even if it's just character wise. Because even here, it seems like the cons or the job comes second to everything else. And it just feels, again, too streamlined a movie for something that involved, the Parker character. And, because I feel like anytime you try to make one of these Parker novels, it's going to feel like something from the 70s. It's going to be deeply character. Even though he's obviously the star of many novels, he needs to break a sweat and not be the guy, realizing everything and having everything planned to go a certain way. And I think the original casting was right. I think this would have been better with Robert Downey Jr. because he was in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, but he was such a kind of silly character. But our protagonist in that him being here a little more serious and determined, yet the ultimate career criminal, and kind of this being a kind of revenge story on different fronts about his character, nobody telling me what I can do, that would have worked. But again, with Marky Mark, it just seems like he's playing more an attitude than anything. And like I said, reasons for, like you said, reasons for him to have his shirt off and, look good and be physically fit as a character. So I agree with that miscasting. Everybody else, is pretty much they're a character, but they're more a comedic character. They don't really have depth. Even Keith Stansfield, who is good, but his character basically only robs so that he can keep funding this artistic theater that even he's not that involved with, like it's not like, oh, I always wanted to be a thespian. It just seems like almost like it's all a tax write-off. So you just wonder what his motivation is there. And there's bits and pieces of this story that are interesting, but then like again, the Tony Shalhoub stuff, uh, you know, in the past, the outfit seem like more encompassing, powerful. And now it just seems like it's one like mob boss in New York, and who's broke, and I'm just like, really? We went from like this conspiracy, like people who operate and move everything to like one guy, really? Like a mob family almost. So I just thought like that's kind of weak. And Tony Shalhoub is doing what the role requires of him, but he doesn't make that big of an impression as a villain. I thought the other guy, the one who played the villain in the Guardians of the Galaxy, the last film, made more of an impression just because of how ridiculous his character was. And I like that actor. I think it's Papadou. I don't know how to say the last name, but I would have rather more him overall been the villain because at least he's interesting. Tony Shalhoub, the way he's written is just like a typical villain mob boss character. So while I think I liked it a little bit more than you, I do think it is kind of a step down because it feels like the script is there, but it's just not matching the mood or depth that it should have. So that's why I felt like it was more streamlined and more made for an audience rather than being true to itself. It's sort of like when you see somebody like in high school, all of a sudden act, have all these interests and act popular when you know who they really are at heart. And, it's like you're not being yourself, you're just doing something to be cool. And that's what it felt like here. And it unfortunately is not just a paycheck job for Shane Black because, you could tell he actually cared about this film since he co wrote it, directed it. And this is more the stuff like you said, with the nice guys and the last Boy Scout, more that type of writing, and it comes off as more like a throwaway script almost, like somebody who's never done this before trying to make a Parker movie and then trying to make it more commercial. So I don't recommend it. Again, it's sort of like the last one we talked about. If there's nothing else on and you just need something for the background, maybe put it on. But, you know, I can't fully recommend it. I will say I found it interesting, the opening scene where he's willing to kill this guy who tried to be a hero in front of his family. But he's like, "Oh, I only kill if I have to." What? you know? So that was weird after you set up this big action sequence. And then, oh, to calm the wife down, it's like, "Oh, here, take this money, hide it under your shirt or they're going to take it." Like, really? That's it? You killed a man in front of his wife and child. I feel like this is like Kill Bill, a setup for a sequel where the little girl and the wife are going to avenge their father's death. So like I said, mild recommendation. I mean, if there is a Play Dirty too, I've already given you a story. So, and for our next film and final film, we're going to talk about the ever popular One Battle After Another, Paul Thomas Anderson's new film based on Vineland, um, starring Leo DiCaprio, Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro, newcomer Chase Infinity, Tiana Taylor, and the actress, singer, and her character name, Jungle Pussy. I will say this. I really like this film. It's beautifully made. Paul Thomas Anderson is one of our ultimate modern directors. Problems I have in writing sometimes. Like obviously there's a satire, kind of a comedic chase movie, something that feels like it is from the 1970s. This feels more like maybe what he was trying to intend to do with Inherent Vice, except obviously not as outlandish, but it feels like something indebted to the 70s and 80s. And I think everybody is great in this film. Sean Penn is a standout in this film. I think Leo DiCaprio is doing his version of the dude from The Big Lebowski, and he's good. I have no problem with him. Benicio del Toro's just cool in this movie as Sensei mercenary, with no worries, it seems ever. He's like the most laid back person I've ever seen in a film.
Mhm.
I aspire to be like him. Chase Infinity, natural born movie star. Look out, Zendaya. Tiana Taylor, who I like as an actress, but I hated her character. But her character needed to do what she needed to do. And I can believe her roughhousing Sean Penn. She looks that tough. And not too much makeup, unlike her in that Tyler Perry movie. But for all its pro and acknowledgement of Black females in this film, I felt like also he kind of fetishizes them a little bit, like Sean Penn's character. Because even though Chase Infinity is this innocent and we show them to all be knowledgeable and cool, I also felt like, but they don't have any lives outside of that, other than the political thing. It like Regina Hall in this film, like she is great in it, but they don't really give her character that much to do other than, trying to safeguard Chase Infinity. And it's like, okay, we're done with you. Like what was she doing all these years while being part of the movement? And this is kind of like her surrogate family that's being hunted down and torn apart. But, you know, they don't give as humanistic, only Tiana Taylor does. And we still never fully explain why her character does what she does, other than, oh, she's kind of selfish and she's down for that. And maybe to punish herself for shooting that guy in the robbery and killing him. But other than that, that's all we get. It's like, we know all about Bob. We know all about even crazy ass Lockjaw, but we don't know the inner lives of anybody but Chase Infinity. But I think all the casting is spot on. I mean, the guy who's the interrogator is a real life Army interrogator that everybody's praising for his performance. I mean, come on, we got Kevin Teague in this film out of nowhere. We got D.W. Moffat, who I haven't seen in how long on the big screen. Jim Downey, infamous Saturday Night Live writer. Um, I like the film. I think it's a good film, and especially the ending chase sequence, which is great. The Christmas Adventures Club, really KKK if you go with them in Dutch, and that's a deep Easter egg. I haven't read Vineland, so I can't say how much they changed and all that. I think it is one of the year's best films, but that doesn't mean it doesn't. I don't have my problems with it. Yeah, you could say it's nitpicking, but so what? And I'm like, was he trying to make a point with spoiler Alana Haim's execution in this
Oh,
film? I'm like, damn, that was kind of messed up. It's like, what'd she do to you? She was like, I don't want a bigger supporting role. He's like, I'll show you, Lockjaw. Um, Everything about Sean Penn's performance is what Josh Brolin's performance in and Inherent Vice should have been, because he has this weird walk throughout the film. He has these weird mannerisms, like when he's doing his hair in the elevator using spit. Um, you know, I feel like the line in the church, "Your why is your shirt so tight?" I feel like that was improvised.
mm,
We needed more moments like that throughout the film. But as a whole, I think it's a masterwork of filmmaking with a relatively new cameraman for him, too. And I think it's a triumph. But, especially since Paul Thomas Anderson is married to Maya Rudolph, who's mixed, I feel like maybe she should have helped him, like, humanize maybe the Black female characters a little bit more, other than Chase Infinity. Because I know Paul Thomas Anderson has said, like, she reminded me of my daughters. That's why I cast her. And that's why I wrote this role for somebody for them to look up to. And I admire that. Wish you could have did the same with the other Black female roles. And I like that April Grace, the interviewer of Tom Cruise and Magnolia, finally appears in, a Paul Thomas Anderson film as one of the leaders of the Sisters of Mercy. And like I said, I like this film. I didn't love it, but it is one of the better films or best films I've seen all year. It would probably be my number 3 on my best of list, unless a bunch of other movies come along to take it down. Andre, what did you think of one? Oh, I highly recommend it. Oh, what did you think of one battle after another?
Oh, I loved it. I loved all of these performances, especially Sean Penn, and even wondering, given his method status, the scene when he has to get aroused by Tiana Taylor, if that was his real Woody, because that might make him a sex symbol again for some of these ladies today. Um, he was, yeah, he just this quirkiness, his insecurities really come through, and I think he definitely was trying to poke fun at some of these what we're going on right now in the country with a certain
Hmm.
paramilitary group. So I think they were trying to poke fun at that without a doubt. I think I want a little bit more out of Benicio del Toro. I feel like he just disappears at a certain point, and I think there needs to be a little bit more going on with him than what they do. DiCaprio, as always, masterful. And I believe the relationship with Chase Affinity and him, and also the relationship with Tiana Taylor as well, wholly agree about Chase Affinity. Her acting is stellar. The only thing I had seen her in before this was the Presumed Innocent TV series where
Oh,
she played the daughter of Jake Gyllenhaal's character, and she has like probably the big shocking twist of that show if you ever watched it.
okay. Mm.
But you really do care for her in this movie, especially being on the run with Regina Hall, then getting captured by Sean Penn and all that goes on. That whole third act to me is the closest we may ever get to Paul Thomas Anderson doing an action movie because it reminded me so much of Mad Max out in the desert, the quiet tension. That stuff really worked well. One thing we didn't talk about was the soundtrack. That was
Oh,
also
yes.
really good too. Some of the, PTA usually has good choices, but here he really goes into some deep cuts, especially the Ready or Not by the Jackson Five cover.
Yes. I had never
That
heard that
I had
before.
never heard it either, and I was like, "Wow, this is really amazing!" And even to find that and to put that into film, more films should be doing that than have to always go with familiar pop tunes that are played over and over and over. And I also think I agree. Alana Haim, they just like dropped her very quickly. I mean, you just went from being the star of the last movie, now you're getting killed off very easily. Even Wood Harris,
Yeah,
they
he's
just
barely in it. Mm.
he's barely in it. And then what's supposed to be implied is his death scene goes completely abrupted. So his fate is kind of left a little bit ambiguous. And yeah, I think there's some actors he probably could have thrown in there, like Maya Rudolph could have played one of these parts. I think we were talking the other night, like when they go to the commissary with the nuns to protect Chase Affinity's character, that they could have gotten somebody a note for that part. I forget who we were talking about, but yeah, that could have been like a nice little cameo there. But overall, I think the messaging is there. It certainly pisses off the conservatives, which I think was kind of the point of this film because of how timely it is. I know it's lost a lot of money because it's his biggest budgeted film, but I think more people are going to discover this film over time because it really hits on a lot of things in a very satirical fashion. The satire, by the way, does work, and it is comedical when it needs to be comedical, and at times when it needs to be played straight, it works well in that regard as well. Two things I also like, my favorite scenes, interrogating Chase Affinity's friends from the prom and how, like, especially the one kid that's just playing it so dumb. And then they basically have to get aggressive with him. And then also the constant thing of DiCaprio trying to call into the underground rebels place and he can't remember the freaking code he's supposed to say. And he's getting so infuriated to the point where ultimately he sees this guy and starts berating him. Who relates to that? Anybody can relate to, like, just give me the fucking information. I don't know the fucking code. Who cares? This is an emergency right now. So that stuff I really like. That really like got me entertained in the theater. So high remarks on it. I think it will be up for Oscars. Can't
Oh,
guarantee it's
yeah.
gonna win some big awards, but honestly, DiCaprio and Penn don't need it. Chase Affinity, I could see getting nominated, but it's very early in her career. If she wins, great. But if not, I think this will be definitely a launch pad for her in future roles. And I agree, she probably will give Zendaya a run for her money.
Well, I'd like to think that they can be like the Mariah and Whitney Houston, together,
Yeah.
no, not really adversaries, but like the two top actresses, because I like them both, and I hope big futures for them both. I find it interesting. This film has no secret cows because the person who does inform on Chase Infinity is actually a sexually ambiguous character or trans character.
Yeah.
And I was like, out of all of them, I expected you not to be as a person. It's like it took me back to not Death Proof, Planet Terror.
Yeah.
Remember where Michael Bihn's character gets shot and he's like, I didn't expect it to be you. And that's
Mm.
how I felt watching that film. This was another film I had a horrible theatrical experience. Nothing wrong with the theater, but the audience next to me. And I admit, like some of the scenes that were more racial, I saw this primarily with the Caucasian audience, and some of their laughs didn't feel comfortable. Like it felt like I hate to say it, it felt like that Dave Chappelle situation was why he quit his show because he felt uncomfortable. The way certain people would laugh, it's not like they're laughing with you, they're laughing at you. And I felt that while watching the film. Again, I don't know if it was a theater full of liberals, but there's just
Mm.
that uncomfortableness a little. But I don't blame the film for that. Well, maybe I do. Again, it's a hard film to talk about. I think, like I said, it's a great filmmaking. I really like the film. I don't have a hard on for it as much as some others. Like, I admit, I really would like to go see this again in theaters. And I think that's the best place to see and experience this film. I saw it in 70 millimeter. I did not get to see it in VistaVision or IMAX because all you mofos keep buying it out. Leave some tickets. So I don't know when the next time I'll ever see an IMAX movie will be, at least not in New York. But I highly recommend the film. Um, Again, I think it's a really good film, but then again, I was part of the party that liked Licorice Pizza too. So he can really do no wrong for me, even though I didn't love Phantom Thread, and Hardy, I think is okay. So that ends our business this week. We went out on a high with one battle after another, which we both highly recommend. And that ends our business for this week. But before we go, I have to ask, have you seen Bob Trevino Likes It? If not, why not? Because that film is fucking awesome. Andre, what film would you recommend the people see?
Have you seen Nobody 2? If not, why not? Because it is actually fucking awesome.
We'll have to see. And that ends our business for this week. So until next time, we bid you adieu.
If you like this review, please be sure to like and hit subscribe to be alerted to new episodes in the future.